My name is Amrita Sandhu, and I'm a registered clinical counselor out here in Surrey, BC. I like to make mental health resource videos, something that people can resonate with and maybe gain some tools or knowledge or resources from. So, today I want to start off with a bit of a story time. Before I was your friendly neighborhood therapist, I had no tools and resources, and I had what we like to call a life quake. A life quake is basically a life experience that completely changes the trajectory of your life. But before it does so, it really shakes things up. So, what ended up happening during this time is because I needed to process everything that had gone on, I ended up engaging in a lot of trauma dumping. At the time, of course, I did not know this is what was going on. This was long before I had gone back to school and became a counselor and learned somatic therapy. But essentially, what was occurring is I was telling my story over and over and over again in all the wrong contexts. I was sharing it in all the wrong spaces. I'm talking the nail salon, eyebrow lady. Bless their souls because they were able to listen to whatever I had to say, but it really wasn't appropriate. I'm sitting there mid wax strip. She's about to rip, and I'm just bearing my soul, sharing all my deep dark secrets. And of course, it's cringy and uncomfortable to reflect on those moments, but I can also hold space and understand what was going on for me psychologically at that time. Because essentially, on the surface, I was trauma dumping. I was trying to release and process and maybe try to attain some sort of comfort and soothing and human connection from all the wrong places, I might add. But beneath it all, what was happening is something that our brain actually does to try to help us move through trauma and process what's gone on and move forward. So, the best example to explain this is basically, have you ever tried to organize the files on your computer? And when you try to drag the file, one of them keeps like bouncing back and it doesn't want to go into that folder. Well, essentially, when you've had so much trauma and it has a lot of emotion and physical repercussions based on what has happened, you're not ready to drag the file folder, so to speak, into the respective folder until you do a little bit of deeper healing first. And of course, the best context to do that in is counseling therapy, not in random public spaces with any which stranger that is kind enough to listen. Essentially, what's going on in the brain is we have our right hemisphere, which is more emotion based, and then our left hemisphere, which is more logical. In order to process trauma, we need to bridge the gap between the two and get them integrated and have the hemispheres working together. Now, when something's really jarring and upsetting, sometimes the emotional side kind of takes the reins and hits the ground running, and that's not really good for us. It wreaks havoc on our nervous system and our bodies as well. And so, in order to kind of mitigate that, we got to weave in the left side. That's where it helps to connect and then redirect with a compassionate space and a counselor, because they give you the know how and the wherewithal to be able to get those tools and resources to finally be able to drag that folder where it needs to go and to not be so deeply impacted by the life quake. I mean, we don't have control about the stuff that happens around us, but we do have control as to how we navigate it and how much space we allow it to take up inside. The reasons why trauma dumping are not okay and can actually be quite damaging for us is because, like I mentioned, in hindsight, it is quite shame inducing and it doesn't feel comfy when you've been emitting all this information when you're dysregulated and you've been in that maladaptive space. And then afterwards, you feel very bare and exposed because you didn't have that filter, you didn't have the boundary and the composure to not recognize what impact it's having on the party that you're sharing with. And that's what kind of makes it a little bit of a unhealthy behavior. Is it's unfair to the person that we're dumping it onto because they might not have the ability to hold space for us, and then it becomes a boundary violation for them. Maybe we see this in the community, where there's the habit of chugliyan, gossiping, or oversharing. And sometimes we try to compartmentalize or try to minimize by telling the story over and over again, or in speaking about it in kind of insensitive manner, because that's our way to try to cope with it and to try to almost um try to tone down how serious it actually is. We think by talking about it in a superficial, lighthearted manner, in a fluffy way, it is somehow going to make it a little bit more bearable. And I mean, we do see that in the community. Sometimes we'll get like these huge trauma bombs shared by our loved ones, and we'll be like, what? Who passed away? When? You went through what? And it's really this jarring information, but they've kind of trivialized it because that's what helps them. Well, they think that's what's helping them cope, where in reality, the answer to this, the antidote to this, is to find a safe space that you relate with the practitioner. They're able to guide you through what's going on, and finally get all that sorted out and have both hemispheres of your brain firing and the neurons connecting in the way that you want, so that you're not having these boundary violations for yourself and re-traumatizing yourself by continuing to hash out the story in places where it's not really appropriate. And then you're also not doing wrong to others by making them listen and be on the receiving end of all of that. What are your thoughts and feelings? Have you seen this in the online space? Sometimes it comes out more in the online world because there's even less of a barrier to be able to just kind of overshare. Or is this something that maybe you've gone through yourself? I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings. And as usual, thank you for watching. See you next time.